Okay. I know I don't have the boobs for it, but I'm gonna play the role of Madame Charlie here and use my mystical ball to try to predict the future, alright? I predict, as you're watching this video when it was uploaded, if you are, right before this video was uploaded or immediately after when this video was uploaded, that's when Chapter 968 is gonna get released. Because it happens every time. Whenever the chapter isn't out on Friday and I decide to do another video instead, this one, it seems like while I'm editing it, or as soon as it's uploaded, boom, Chapter 968's out. Like, dang it, if I only would have waited a little while longer! Like, every time it happens, alright? So I'm predicting it now. Okay. So, today's video, though, is going to be a little bit of a follow-up to a video I made last week. What if Gold D. Roger was still alive in the present story? And in that video, I talk about what if Roger never got sick, if he was never executed by the Marines, he never turned himself into the Marines, how would this change the world? I'm mostly focused on, like, the macro scale there, focusing on how Roger's influence would, change if he was still alive during his era that he created, right? Because all over the world, people got the news, like, oh, Gold D. Roger, king of the pirates, he found Laugh-Tale, this great treasure. Citizens were afraid of him, the Marines were still trying to catch him, pirates by the score were inspired to set out to sea, both the good and the bad and the kind of dopey, but they did it anyway. There were people that, like, feared him, there were people that respected him. I'm sure even there were citizens that were really afraid of Gold D. Roger in this great pirate era he started, like, well, I hope he doesn't come to my island, but, damn if he doesn't have a fine mustache. You gotta respect a man, Meredith, for having a mustache that awesome, right? Even the Marines were probably begrudgingly, respecting Roger, at least, and maybe like, well, yeah, we'll catch the Pirate King. Great pirate era, we'll find him and we'll throw him in freaking Impel down. And then he secretly goes back to his room and he has the giant, poster of Roger. He's like, man, you're a pretty damn awesome guy. So that's the world on, like, a larger scale. Fear and respect and the way that would change. But a lot of people were quick to point out, hey, Matt, what about Ace? He was Roger's kid, would he still have been born? Would everything still flow the same way it did with him being raised at, Fuchsia or Mount Colbo, Gray Terminal, becoming a pirate himself, hating his dad, being attacked or trying to seek out Blackbeard, getting captured by Blackbeard, executed at Marineford? Would that have played out the same way if Roger was still alive? So, yeah, kind of, glanced over that for, like, the bigger picture, but let's focus more on the micro here. Instead of Roger's influence on the entire world, Roger as a daddy, alright? So, yeah, and I just love to say that, by the way, Gold D. Roger! You gotta really gun it, you gotta start that gas. Roger! Just say it. I guarantee it'll make your day better. That's not endorsed by a doctor or anything, but it'll make your day better if you just say that at least a few times. Okay. Now, first things first, I'm not even 100% certain if Ace would have been born, if Roger wasn't sick or if he wasn't about to die and he knew that and he turned himself in the Marines. It's very likely that he would have just kept on journeying, and I'm sure Roger, he's a pirate, and it's been talked about that, yeah, he met a bunch of lovely ladies at certain points there, but yeah, let's just say, for the sake of this being a video at all, because this will be a really short video if it's like, oh yeah, if Roger never died, then he would have never had a kid, he would have just kept on being a pirate, and yeah, Ace would have never been born. So there you go, and that's kind of interesting in and of itself. We could talk about, like, alright, if Ace was never born, then, it would have just been Luffy at Mount Colbo. Maybe Luffy would have ran into Sabo, but then again, it was Sabo that met Ace that kind of got him out of the capital of Goa, so that probably would not have happened. So probably what would have went down there is that Luffy still would have ate the Gomu no Mi. He still would have been taken by Garp into Dadan's care, and still been raised. It's just he wouldn't be as strong because he wouldn't have had that drive that Ace and Sabo's death when he was a kid kind of pushed him further. So, yeah, and obviously there'd be no Ace at Alabasta. There would be no Marineford arc because Ace would not be executed. So, yeah, it would just be like Luffy would still be Luffy. It's just, I think he would lack the drive to be, as strong as he was at the start of the story. He would still want to be a pirate. He would still set out to sea, find Zoro and Nami and Usopp and everything. It would just be a little bit of him wouldn't be there, like in the main story. So, yeah, that would be a rather quick video there. But no, just for the sake of argument, let's say, all right, Ace was still born at around the same time in the same kind of set of circumstances. Roger went to the South Blue, met Porcus D. Rouge, fell in love because, yeah, it is implied that, yeah, while Roger had a bunch of other, lovely ladies to spend some time with, it seemed like Rouge was the one he actually fell in love with. Also for the fact that she has the will of D. In fact, the only female in the entire story, I believe so, the only female that is the bearer of the will of D. And I meant that completely seriously, but now you're thinking about it in other context, and I think I'm already reading my sexual joke quota for this video, so let's just continue on there. I don't think even in this scenario Roger would stick around for a number of reasons. Number one, even if he knows he's not going to die soon, he's still the king of the pirates being chased all over the world. If anything, the Marines are on higher of an alert now. It's like, great pirate era or Roger's era, what the hell? Find him and bring me in. Bring me pictures of Spider-Man and Roger. Okay, we got one, sir. Okay, there you go. So he wouldn't stay in one place for very long. I mean, he couldn't do that already because he's a pirate at heart. He's an adventurer. He doesn't really have to be hunkered down in one space anyway. But here, most definitely not. I mean, the Marines would really be on his tail wherever he would be going. So it would be really more of just like him stopping off in some tropical island in the South Blue, him and the crew maybe having, a good time, meeting Rouge, then, Roger and Rouge exchanging, like, having some chemistry together, puppy dog eyes, some other stuff happens, Bonachinko wow wow, and then boom, Ace is conceived. Roger decides to leave because, and I'm sure Rouge would even understand this, it's like, yeah, you're Pirate King. If you stay on this island for more than a week, Marines will be buster calling the crap out of it. So that's one reason. And also, I just like, I don't know if Roger, I mean, technically he did raise Shanks and Buggy as children from when they were like at least 9 years old. We don't know exactly when Shanks and Buggy joined the Roger crew, but they were there ever since they were at least 9. So, I mean, I guess Roger, that kind of puts him in a fatherly role, but at the same time, he also brought those two kids on his ship. Oh yeah, and also Hiyori and Momo, when Odin and Toki joined, they brought their babies as well, and Roger was like, it's been a while since I've held a baby matey, baby matey. So maybe he would have made a good dad, but I just think it's kind of like a Yasop situation. I think it's like, I would love to stay Rouge, but the voice of the sea calls to me, something like that. So I don't think Roger would have stuck around. However, something that I do believe would have changed is that in the original story, Rouge had to hold Ace in her womb for, I think, like over 20 months. And at that point, when Ace was finally born, Rouge died during childbirth because of how intense that was, right? And by the way, I think we talked about this before, like when I did Ace's video, we talked about the whole, like, holding him in her womb for like 20 months or something, and there were a few people that know more a little about medical science than I do, and they're like, yeah, that's not possible. But One Piece, that just proves that she really had that indomitable will, okay, of D. But no, in this situation, the whole reason why they were being attacked and, like, they were, she had to hold him in her womb is because the Marines really wanted to make sure Roger's bloodline ended with him. All right, because Roger had died at that point, and they were digging up everywhere that Roger had been in the year or so prior, and like, all right, we gotta find every pregnant woman on those islands where Roger was at, or even rumored to be at, and we need to take care of that. It's actually one of the darker moments in One Piece when you really talk about that, like how the Marines basically sent out a roving squad to eliminate all of the women that Roger, not even all the women that Roger had been with, just all the pregnant women in places where Roger happened to have been or rumored to have been, and take care of them. That's pretty messed up, right? That's the Marines doing that. Like, holy crap, right? So, if Roger was still alive, though, I don't think there would be as much of a priority in that. I don't think the Marines would have, like, because they was like, okay, Roger's already dead, he's taken care of, but we have to make sure he didn't have any children. You know, he didn't get, you know, frisky during that last year where he was alive, okay? Now he's still alive all over the world. That's the main priority. That's the main issue. Trying to find Roger and bring him in, not really paying too much attention to the idea of him having children, all right? That's probably a concern, but not as much of a concern, okay? So you could look at that two ways. You can look at it like the Marines would not be sending out those roving squads to try to find the places where Roger had been and, you know, eliminate these pregnant women, and then Ace would have just been born normally, 9-month pregnancy. Rouge would have survived the childbirth, and so Ace would have had a mother growing up. That would have been nice. Or you could look at it the other way. It's like, okay, they might not be looking directly for Roger's child, but they might be going to all the places Roger was rumored to have been to try to find him, and things could have also been risky there, like, you know, like, let's say, you know, Roger comes to the South Blue, meets Rouge, conceives Ace, Roger leaves. Let's say 5 months later, the Marines show up on the same island, and they're like, we heard Goldie Roger, the king of the pirates, was on this island not too long ago, and they're looking around. Maybe Rouge was like, yeah, probably not. Probably should wait a little while to have this kid, you know? So it still might have went the same way. Either, and this actually is a really big difference here. This isn't like a trivial thing, because you'd figure if Rouge was alive and survived the childbirth, there's really no reason for her to give Ace over to Garp. You know, because that was like Roger's last wish to Garp. Garp might not even know about this at this point, because the whole thing was Garp met Roger at Impel Down when he was about to be sentenced to death at Logtown and everything, when he was about to get transferred there. And then that's when Roger and Garp had that like heart-to-heart conversation where it's like, "Aye, Garp, you know, you might be a Marine and I might be king of the pirates." I know you're king of the pirates. You don't have to bring it up every time. I do indeed, matey. But you see, I have a kid. Probably a few, actually. I've gotten kind of crazy last year, you know. I knew I was gonna be clipped, so you figure what I was gonna do. Right, anyway. I'm thinking there's this lady in the South Blue, if she's still there. Her name's Portgas D. Rouge. She's lovely. She has a flower in her hair. Anyway, she's probably, you know, pregnant with my child right now. Could you make sure that child is born and, you know, not immediately eliminated by the Marines? That would be awesome. Like, you understand I am a Marine. Yes, but you're a cool Marine. You have the fist. I would love my son to be raised by you. So, I guess that's how that conversation went. And Garp was just like, I mean, once again, Garp, that wasn't a begrudging respect. I think Garp just straight up did respect Roger. They fought together at God Valley at one point. So, yeah, it's like circumstances put them on opposite sides of that, you know, that chasm, you know, one being a pirate, one being a Marine. But I think at the end of the day, Garp would realize, like, yeah, that would be kind of unfair for them to, you know, take care of a baby, you know, to eliminate a child that had nothing to do with this. You know, the sins of the father do not immediately reflect on the son or the daughter. So I guess that makes sense, right? So Garp decided to go introduce himself to Rouge, explain the circumstances, and then Rouge died during childbirth, and then Ace was in the custody of Garp. Garp took him back to Fuchsia and Mount Colbo, and we all know what happened with there. But in this circumstance, I don't know. Would Roger have still told Garp about this? They were still kind of like rival friends. Wrens. They were still Wrens, or maybe Frivals. They were Frivals. That's better. They were Frivals. So maybe when they were fighting at one point at the end of the battle, maybe Roger told us, "Hey, Garp, take care of my kid, would you? He lives here." It's like, what? I can't just, okay, fine. So it's still possible. I'm not saying it isn't. It's just a lot less likely, I think, in this scenario. If Rouge did not die and raised Ace on her own, and nobody just ever noticed, nobody ever really noticed the family resemblance or anything like that, and they just kind of rolled with it, I'm thinking Ace's childhood would, obviously not living in the mountains of Mount Colbo, raised by mountain bandits, his life growing up would be a lot more peaceful. Rouge would probably still tell Ace about his dad. Would Ace hate him as much? You know? That's a question. You know, Ace really resented his dad growing up, didn't really like to talk about him too much. you know, especially since, his mother was not there to really raise him or anything or tell him about his dad. He found all this stuff about Garp later on. Like, Ace didn't even know Rouge's name or anything like that. Like, Garp told him after the fact, right? Like, when he was old enough. So maybe if Ace was born and raised by Rouge in the South Blue, then he would grow up and she would tell him about Roger and how he was a great man. He's like, yes, he might be a pirate. Yes, he had to leave, but there was a good reason for it. He's out there in the world. And maybe it might have actually been a complete opposite switch for Ace, where he would still want to be a pirate to go out to sea, but actually instead of like, in spite of his father, like, I'm going to be my own pirate. I'm not going to be in his shadow. Maybe it might be kind of a Hunter x Hunter scenario where it's like, well, if being the king of the pirates was so great for him to leave my mom, I'm gonna go and try to be king of the pirates and see if how it works for me, maybe, I don't know, because it's like, you have Rouge there in person, raising her child, and telling him and teaching him about the world, and maybe filling Ace's head with how great Roger is, rather than him growing up in Mount Colbo and listening to all these people in the bars and stuff talking shit on Roger. And how he's a pirate. Maybe he would grow up kind of like Luffy, like kind of admiring pirates, or his own dad in a sense, It's possible. I mean, we're talking like a complete, I know what you might be saying, like that might be against Ace's personality. Then we start getting into discussions of like, what is your personality? Imagine like, if you were raised by completely different parents than you were raised in this universe. If there's a parallel universe where you were raised by other people in another place, would your personality and your ambitions be the same? I'm going to assume probably not. I mean, that's just my opinion there. That's something you really need to talk to like a sociologist about or something. But, that's the situation. Like, instead of being raised by mountain bandits out in the boonies, and scavenging through the gray terminal, you're raised by your mother in this tropical paradise and learning about the world from her. So yeah, it might be a very, very different kind of Ace that we're talking about here. But I think no matter what, he would still go out to sea to be a pirate. Or at the very least, he would leave the South to go to find his own path, his adventure. He's an adventurer, not a pirate, maybe. Because I think just either I hate my dad, so I'm going to prove that I'm my own pirate, I'm my own man, or I love my dad or I respect my dad, I'm going to go follow in his footsteps. Either way, he ended up going out to sea, right? He would not have the same crew if he started in the South rather than the East. He wouldn't meet Mass Deuce. The Marineford was found on a random island in the East, not the South, so he wouldn't have the Devil Fruit power. Very, very unlikely that he would have the Devil Fruit power in that scenario. He might still call his crew the Spade Pirates, just with a different crew, get to the Grand Line. After you get to the Grand Line, you might actually be able to piece this together in a similar way, where we're getting into the Ace light novel series. He was chased around by Nailing Isuka, I think was her name, the Marine ensign that was kind of like his Smoker, like Luffy's being chased after by Smoker, and Ace was chased after by Asuka, and him eventually maybe running into Jinbei and fighting him. That might still happen. Fight might go a little differently if he doesn't have the Marineford. Maybe he didn't eat the Marineford, but maybe he found some other devil fruit along the way. No idea what that devil fruit could have been, but it probably wouldn't have been the Marineford. But still would have ended up with something, maybe to fight with. So maybe he got some other devil fruit. Maybe it might have not have been a Logia. It could have been a Zone. Could have been Paramecia. Train with that. And he could have fought against Jinbei, and it maybe would have went the same way. And then Whitebeard would have arrived, and he would have ended up joining with Whitebeard's crew anyway. You still got to jump through a few hoops to make that happen, but once he gets to the Grand Line, the story could relatively maintain the sameness. And him getting into Whitebeard's crew, that really has nothing to do with his dad being Roger, or Roger still being alive, or how he views Roger. All right? He ended up on that crew. He went out to do his own thing with the Spade Pirates. Whitebeard beat him down, and then he learned to respect Whitebeard, and he became his son and the leader of the 2nd Division. So I think that could have still happened regardless if it's like, okay, I'll join your crew, you know, Pops. In fact, I think even more likely than that in that scenario, if he respected Roger, because it's like, oh, okay, well, Roger's been missing for a while now. We don't know where he's at, but if I stay with Whitebeard, that's the most likely event for me to run into him. So I think it's even more likely that he would have tried to seek out Whitebeard and be a member of his crew at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, if we continue on with that logic of things being mostly the same, then Ace becomes the 2nd Division commander. Blackbeard still kills Thatch, gets the Yami Yami no Mi, defects. Ace feels it's his responsibility to capture him. He leaves the crew to go capture him, same as always. Even with the Mara no Mi, this ridiculously powerful Logia, he was still not able to defeat Blackbeard, so even if Ace had some other kind of Devil Fruit, even if it was another kind of Logia, he probably would have still lost to Blackbeard at Bonaro Island. Things are still moving the same as they are in the story. Gets captured, thrown over to the Marines, thrown in Marineford. Now, here's where things get interesting. In this timeline, Ace and Luffy have never met each other. The only way it would have been feasible for them to meet each other is when they were journeying on the Grand Line. Maybe they bumped into each other by accident, but they would have no idea who each other is. They would not be sworn blood brothers, or Sake brothers, I guess. And honestly, if anything, they would be enemies or rivals at best. So, Ace being captured by the Marines and thrown up for execution, Luffy would not feel any obligation, or might not even hear about it. Maybe hear about it, but not like, oh, the commander of one of Whitebeard's divisions is going to be executed at Marineford. Sucks for that guy. I gotta get back to my crew, okay? Because Luffy would still be like an Amazon Lily at this point, and he'd be like, okay, that's great. We're going to Saboni. Come on, Hancock, let's go. You know, and honestly, that can kind of connect back to another what if scenario I did. What if the time skip never happened? So that could kind of tie back to that. They just go back to Saboni, meet back up, and just continue in the new world and immediately get crushed. Or if not immediately, very nearly immediately get crushed by the strong oppressive force of the new world pirates, right? But no, yeah. So Luffy wouldn't show up with the Impel Down prisoners. Luffy wouldn't go to Impel Down at all. So all the people at Impel Down, like Crocodile, Ivankov, they would still stay at Impel Down. No reason for Luffy to go and liberate them to get Ace out, right? And Jinbei as well. Jinbei would still stay locked up. Ace would go to Marineford. Whitebeard would arrive with his force to protect him. And maybe, in this timeline, maybe, I'm throwing that out there because I'm not 100% certain this would happen, but maybe that's the moment if Roger was in hiding, Roger would show up to save his son. Whitebeard would definitely be there, so maybe Roger would think to himself of like, oh, well, you know, that old codger Whitebeard's there to save my kid. It'll be okay, you know. Or if that's the case, then if only Whitebeard's crew arrived to save him, I think things would turn out pretty much the same way as they did without Luffy, because even with Luffy there, Ace still died, Whitebeard still died, even without Roger showing up. So, yeah, I think that would have still happened, but if Roger reappeared, if it was like he went away for a few years and kept on the down low, let the new generation kind of gather some notoriety, and then boom, he appears at Marineford. Yarg! I will never let them execute my flesh and blood son. And it's like, Ace is Roger's son! I guess they would maybe already know that, but if not, they would know about it at that point. And they'd be like, what? And then Ace would be like, Daddy! Son! If that was the situation, and Roger showed up with, like, the rest of the Roger crew, like, one last hurrah, men, we're gonna save my kid! Then, I think, both Whitebeard and Ace could have made it out of there alive. And then, it would continue on a new path, but once again, Ace would never know Luffy or Sabo in this context, so, like, Sabo might never even become a member of the Revolutionary Army in this timeline, because he probably would have just stayed in the Goa capital, never would have went to Grey Terminal, or never would have been swept up in that attack. You know, maybe it would have happened that way, but probably not. And, you know, Luffy would have never felt the urge to get stronger to protect the people he cares about because Ace died, so they would have just jumped immediately into the new world. and they probably would have gotten devastated immediately if they didn't team up with a Yonko crew almost immediately. They would have gotten crushed. So, yeah, thinking about this, it really does kind of speak to volumes more about this than I originally figured, if Roger was still alive. You know, this has the potential to go along pretty much the same as the regular story. Let's say, let's just say Garp was there, Rouge died, Garp got Ace, got to Mount Kolbo, Luffy met Sabo, Ace, and all those people. That still happened, and then you get to Marineford in that timeline. Luffy's there with Ivankov and all the Impel Down escapees, Crocodile, Jinbei's there, Whitebeard's there, but on top of Shanks also showing up, boom, Roger shows up. That would be like, all right, the Marines are just gone now. You got literally Goldie Roger, King of the Pirates, Shanks, one of the Yonko, and Whitebeard, another Yonko, all arriving to protect Ace at once. Boom, boom, boom. I guess, and Luffy as well, and Crocodile, and Ivankov, and Buggy. The Marines would just be devastated that day. You know, Whitebeard and freaking Roger and Shanks, they'd be like, you know what, let's just take care of all of them at once. Let's leave, like, Garp alive, but beyond that, boom! And just all the Marines would just get crushed in a giant crater. So, do you see the significance of Roger's existence now? Like, we just crafted a scenario which, I don't think that was too crazy of a scenario to think. Like, if Whitebeard was there and Luffy was there, and let's say Shanks decided to show up, and Roger decided to come out of hiding at the last minute, I guess that would be the end of the Marines. Either that, or Sengoku would have just like, alright, I'm sorry, we're sorry, here. Like, Sengoku would grab Ace himself and been like, you get a free ride this time, kid, and just throw him back. It's like, because we're literally facing down two Yonko and the King of the Pirates, and these ex-warlords, and Luffy, Son of Dragon, and Ivankov of the Revolutionary Army. Like, even Sengoku and Garp would have to realize at that point they are outclassed, outgunned. They're done, right? You're done at that point, right? There's nothing you can do. Even with the admirals, that's just too much. That is way too much. So, yeah, what do you guys think of these scenarios that I painted? Do you think they're likely or not? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know. In fact, let's do that. Let's check that right now to see if the new chapter's out. Refresh. No, not yet. Okay, but we'll see. We'll see. And I also want to apologize for the lack of sock puppet theater in this one. Yeah, I did in fact get these Rick and Morty socks for Christmas, so maybe I could have made something. I wanted to do something with that, but it's not the right way, see? Like, their faces are not, I guess I could have done this, but, you know, that wouldn't have worked out too well. But, sorry, no sock puppet theater this time around. Oh, gee, Rick, what are we going to do? We don't have any sock puppet theaters. Ugh, shut up, Morty, you freaking dumbass. No one cares about sock puppets, Morty. That's all you get. Okay. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a good one. Tekking, signing out. See you tomorrow, or possibly Sunday for the review. I don't even know what's up with that myself anymore, and this is kind of my job, so we'll see how it goes. Set out to sea, men.